Hello, everyone, and welcome. In this recording, I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming Aries equinox, a celestial event that is going to be quite special this year. I know that if you've been a follower of my work, I kind of said that every single year since 2020, but each year it was definitely special in their own unique way. And this year is going to be just the same, yet it has a lot of impact. It has a very strong gravity. Now, I know I stopped doing this, but I had a bargain with the universe where if he would give me guidance, I agreed to share guidance with you through this video. So I am executing my end of the deal. Now, I will refer to this as Aries equinox because on one hemisphere it's spring, on the other hemisphere is autumn. It doesn't really matter from a technical astrological perspective because the karmic energies and especially the guidance is the highlight of this show. Now, just a few quick words that you probably already know. The Aries equinox, when the sun moves into the sign of Aries, from an astrological perspective, is the beginning of the New Year cycle and basically everything that has to do with it. You know, the typical, classical, general stuff. It's an energy which is really good for new beginnings, new moves, new steps, the new generally, creation, creativity. Also, to stop something, especially long term, and allow something else to take its place. Because, the equinox is where the sun is at 0 degrees of Aries. So it is a 1 foot also in 29 degrees of Pisces, which is the end, which is the past. While Aries, of course, is the new beginning, the seed, the embryo, the first breath, all of that. So the general stuff applies, of course. However, I think all of us notice that we are in very, very special times, and the big planets, the heavy planets, and also the new planets are adding something that no one ever, not even our ancestors, so really absolutely no one has ever experienced before. So all of us alive today, in a sense, are a bit in the fog because we just simply don't have the experience. Neither do we have the proper knowledge, nor should we, because basically that's why all of us are alive today, to figure it out, to see for ourselves, to adapt, to cope, and of course, a massive keyword here is to create. Even though, if you look at the world, it's the opposite that's, you know, going on. However, even that has an astrological logic to it, and it was so expected from so very many different ways. Astrologically, first of all, because if you look back at past cycles, and when I say past cycles, we're not talking about the very distant past. Let me just give you a very quick and relevant example. The Arab Spring in the 2010, 11, something like so. It's there. And it seems that from certain points of view, our race has not learned the lessons of the past. However, the duality of this period, a lot have learned. And there is a clash. And when I say clash, I don't mean the wars directly, because those are basically the past, like a really vengeful ghost. Any side, absolutely any side to any war. Those are like bitter, relentless, sorrowful, vengeful ghosts trying to grip whatever they can to keep on existing. However, it's up to us and this collectively if we want them to keep on existing, if we want the ghosts to how you say that, cohabit with us, or if we want them into the past. Stay dead, basically. So that part is very clear, and I don't really want to focus on the collective part because I don't need to. However, I just want to say that Saturn's entry into Aries, not last year, and Neptune's entry into Aries, and a lot of big moves similar to this. For example, Pluto. It was so predictable, you know, and that is one of the reasons why I stopped doing astrology, is because at that moment when it was truly predictable, why sugarcoat it? Why? There is a very fine line between, Neptune, the dream. It is what we want it to be. We have to feed the narrative that we wish to exist. So peace and love and of course all that. However, as I said, there is a fine line. That feeding can also be deep, deep naivety, where it is almost like, I don't want to use a morbid example. So I'm going to use my personal life. So when we plant the seed, and we see that, well, it's struggling. No matter what we fertilizer, prayer, even what kind of water, set sunlight, the seed just doesn't want to, it's not ready. It's simply no. It's a no. It doesn't want to live. Well, we can't force feed that. It will live, but you know what I mean. So that's the fine line. So let's get to this year and this Aries equinox. As I said earlier, Saturn, Neptune are awaiting the sun, because where I live, it's tomorrow. And that has a very special significance because we cannot deny that Saturn in the sign of Aries can act, it doesn't like it there, first of all. So very many times it is very violent. It doesn't have bounds, in a sense that Saturn is the planet which should be the bounds. Clear, like for example, walls, tall buildings, solid, something bones, for example. In sea creatures, their carapace, their shell, Saturn, the solid. In Aries, it can break, and if the wall is anti-violence, well, we see on the world stage, so I really don't have to. But it has other, like, let me give you individual examples. Saturn just freshly moved direct from Pisces into Aries, because it retrograded back into Pisces and then went back forward into Aries. That means addictions, Pisces, have no bounds. They lose their cool. They can't control it, can't contain it anymore. So tears, tragedy, sorrow, it could not be saved. Look at all the waves of suicides and Aries. Sorry, Saturn in Aries. It couldn't hold it together. So sometimes it's ultra strong, where there is no stopping the violence. There's no stopping Aries, the fire, the ram, rushing forward. The ram doesn't care who the opponent. Just look at rams dueling each other in nature. One has to suffer severe concussions and has to, be dazed when the fights stop, if not death. But, that's the energy of Aries that goes forward, especially after a retrograde Saturn. Because retrograde Saturn, especially in Pisces, all what you could do to prevent, to make this not as drastic, as radical, has been done, and now there's no stopping it. However, let's include Neptune. Neptune rules Pisces, and it spent a lot of time there. So it really, really, and also this Neptune in Pisces, its home sign, was a massive lesson to all of astrologers alive today. We never experienced this energy in a realistic way. And we saw that Neptune, unconditional love, the spirit, dreams, all of the good, all of that which the human spirit is beautiful for. We also saw the opposite, evil. And I don't mean this in a religious way or any kind of supernatural way, neither in a fanatic way. Evil within all of us, any of us. Let me give you an example. Jealousy, a bit over the top, envy. Why them? Why not me? If I can't be happy, then neither should. And the typical victims. In these years, when Neptune transited Pisces, we saw the victim becoming the star of the show. On one hand, in the first two decans of Pisces, that was karmic. Why? Because our humanity's history and all of the, Piscean stuff, the victim had to be honored. However, when it started to transit the third decan, that's when the victim was the star of the show in all the bad ways. I'm looking for a specific word here. Entitlement. This is where non-victims, because Pisces is also the lie, the con, the pretend, chameleon, right? There were a lot of false victims using and abusing laws, and you know what Karen, what's the male part of Karen? Ken? Something like that type of energy where being a victim guarantees you money, love, attention, anything. Or the even darker expression of it, dark mystics, where you have to be a victim in order to poison the very air around you. All of a sake because an ancestry, that sort of stuff. But that is slowly coming to a close. Not yet, because the nodal axis is still in Pisces Virgo axis, which means that we need to address these issues. But personally, especially because they're in the first decan now. So the first decan is the truest expression of the sign. I'm not even sure which term to use here. Like the most distilled, the prime expression of the sign. So we need to address these issues within us, within our family, and we're addressing those issues out with the past. And even though we might not see in with the new yet, we feel it. We must. There's no other way around it. When the past collapses, when let's say our personal history collapses, I'm no longer that person. I'm no longer the victim. I'm no longer the dreamer. I'm no longer special snowflake. Don't understand it in an offensive way, but rather a self-ironic way, self-ironization way. That's done. Now it's time to get very, very, very real, especially due to the South Node in Virgo. Virgo is let's do it. Let's find a solution. Let's be real. And detox and elimination but Yeah, this is very clear, crystal clear. Even in the present moment, well, Mercury is almost at a standstill, which means it's preparing to end its retrograde period, conjunct the North Node. And Mercury doesn't love it in the sign of Pisces because it's exactly all those things that we can't rationalize. Deep emotions, traumas, connection to the divine, connection to past ancestry, the spirits of our ancestors. And I know I shouldn't say this, but we see this. The history that no one wishes to let go in the Middle East, in other parts of the world. The spirit don't, and this is the spirit don't want to let go of history, even though it knows it must. Because the spirit isn't in charge. No, 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 no. It's nature in charge. And if nature says, look, spirit, let go, because I am, let's say I'm Mother Nature now. I need to renew myself. I have to go to, a salon, make myself beautiful, hair removal and all that, because I'm preparing myself to be a mother again. Well, it don't matter what the spirit wants to cling on to. Either it conforms with Mother Nature's needs, or Mother Nature won't allow the spirit to exist at all in matter. It will send it back to the void, basically. So Mercury at this standstill, at this shadowy moment, is preparing us to understand that, of course, on a personal level, it is just us. And why is the us, as in the self, important? Because Aries is the self. Neptune in Aries, the dream of the self. Saturn in Aries, the confinements, the limitations, and the freedom, the what we allow as freedom of the self. Just a moment, please. Need a sip of water. So, and the sun is very much the self, exalted, very relevant, very powerful, very, very self in the sign of Aries. And if we add to it that we had a new moon in the sign of Pisces just yesterday where I was, and it was around 28 degrees of Pisces. Again, that's in between the past and the fresh, the new, the embryo. And the new moon is the embryo. And it's so dual because this new moon was about definitely like a vitriol, like the strongest acid erasing the past. Especially, it was conjunct what we a fixed star named I don't know how to pronounce it. Seat Star of Sorrows. Enough with sorrow. Enough. And actually, in where I don't know, I shouldn't really mention it's see what kind of difficult times we live where you can speak freely. You can't. Drowning. Just yesterday in my country, there was a massive ship accident and some sailors drowned. In other parts of the world, definitely there was a lot of drowning, and I shouldn't even smile because it's tragic and horrific. And but the sea claims that's Neptune, that's Pisces. The sea claims, and I hope I don't forget. It's also Sedna, but that's a different chapter. So we saw that new moon vitriol really claiming and erasing. However, after that gives actually the gateway to the new, to the embryo, to that which we must strive for. Now the right word is fight for Aries and Saturn in Aries, but I don't want to insult the spirits of the freshly deceased, so I'm not gonna say fight. But in turn, this is a personal, the self energy. We are fighting, but the battle is within our hearts, our minds, especially our minds. And the vitriol, Neptune was perfectly conjunct Saturn just a week, some days ago, somewhere in I haven't practiced astrology for since September, so I'm not as sharp at the dates, but that conjunction told us that erase, like alchemy, the vitriol, anything that is phonetic, anything that is deeply dogmatic, anything that you're clinging to aggressively, I don't want to let go. So, of course, it hit a lot of us. And I'm not speaking about the external now, internal. I cannot be anymore husband, wife to this person. That's enough. You understand? Any work contracts, anything that is Saturnian in nature, no longer. And even if we have no solution yet, okay, but what am I gonna be then? Well, the Aries equinox, dream it up. But dreaming it up is not the Piscean dream anymore. Mercury debilitated, Mercury debilitated in Pisces. Mars not very comfortable in Pisces as well, because we can't. Let me just highlight this a bit. We see the sun here at 0 in Aries now. Mars and Mercury conjunct the North Node perfectly in stationary position, which means it opposes South Node in Virgo in its home sign of Virgo. So Mercury is a big dog here right now, and it means business. Like a side note, again, when Mercury is this shadowy, especially in a part of the sky where it doesn't like to be careful with signing contracts that are not very crystal clear. Cons, deception, lies, fake, you know. And if something broke under Mercury retrograde, and this is where something electronical, or this is where you should really ask yourself why. With my personal example, my laptop broke under this Mercury retrograde. So it was crystal clear that I no longer need it. It's done. But this is example purposes. What broke in your life? And it doesn't need to be just electronics, because again, Pisces, something inner. Whatever broke is a blessing. Trust me, it is a blessing. The universe took some burden away from you, because very many times we see let me give you an example. Let's say there's a massive flood, and you know that your house is gonna be taken in 30 minutes or so. You would be unwise to get the gold, because it weighs you down. Its value, it's all that, everything good. But when the flood is coming, it's the self that you save, animals, husband, wife, living things first, and then gold, right? So even if it broke something valuable, something that you love, trust me, it's a blessing. So now we get to the Aries equinox. What does this energy actually want from us? Oh, sorry. Because, yeah, Sun, Neptune, but there's also today the moon and Venus also in it. Venus doesn't like it in Aries either. It's not just Saturn. Venus doesn't like it there. So she is what we call the slutty Venus. A very passion, very head instinct, pheromone driven Venus. infidelities and all. We get that. We understand the infidelities, but Venus is also money. Venus is also value. And we might have the tendency to fight way too fang and claw for it. Now, as I said, strong ambition, aka fighting, is okay, but as long as Mercury's now shadowy, if we know what we're fighting, understand, inner stand, and Mars, we take inner action. So this is where we take action within ourselves. The battle is inside, anywhere, even the crown chakra, because this is also a battle of spirits, because we are made of more than one spiritual element. And I'm not talking about light and dark here, because light and dark are the same. Light and dark are what we're using them for. So, and right now, the world, Mother Nature is actually showing us that clearly, without any curtains, no smoke and mirrors. Power, Mars, is really what you use it for, right? The example of vitriol. It can cause a lot of harm, but it can clean, rust, and whatever you want. It can restore your object or your frying pan to perfect new. So that's Mercury and the North Node. So this is where Mercury, and along with Mars, of course, as well, asks us, know and be very sure, feel it, what you're fighting for. Make sure that your own spirit is animating you and your actions. I'm not speaking about possession here. I'm speaking about, well, Pluto in Aquarius, society, other people. Do I want this job because I want it and I feel like I can give something? Or do I want it because XYZ, my neighbor, my someone, has a similar position and look how well they're doing? I'm not any less than them. That's the bad kind. That's also spirit. That's also spirit. And it's not even something evil or bad. It's just misinterpretation, misfeeling, if you like. Mercury in Pisces. So and this is where I must show you. There is another very long-term resident. Oh, where is it? In Aries, and that's Chiron. Chiron almost perfectly, to the degree, but also almost to the minute, conjunct Aries. And Aries is basically chaos. I would refer to Aries as the patron saint, if you can call it like that, of creational chaos. That which needs to be born, it will chaos will find a way to bring it forth. All of us, everything is born out of chaos. Chaos is not a bad force. Chaos is not evil. Chaos is not what the I'm lost for words here because I'm gonna offend. Anything I say is damn if you do, damn if you don't. Those who wish perfect order, right? The opposite of chaos. It's evil in their eyes. But the universe is both order and chaos, and order and chaos are not enemies, just playmates. Lovers, if you will. Lovers who don't sign the marriage act because they want their own freedom, but they're still lovers. They still sleep with each other, if you know what I mean. So everything basically is born out of chaos. We are born out of chaos. everything we have in our lives, materially speaking, every atom of ours was born from chaos, literally. Let me explain this scientifically. Now, the sun and other sun-like type of stars, they don't produce, they produce maximum carbon. But the exotic elements like gold and especially our Earth's core were produced by stars that existed very soon after the Big Bang, so-called Big Bang, and they were so ultra intense and massive that they lasted very like only a few millions of years, but their detonation was what created the most exotic elements in the universe. And Earth, and especially our solar system, is packed with those, especially the telluric planets, especially Earth. But besides Earth, the trans-Neptunian objects are packed with the most exotic elements. Now, of course, some extreme stars still exist in the even our galaxy, in any galaxy in our universe today. But on one hand, they're very rare, and on the other hand, they can't spread the exotic elements as quickly as the primal chaos. So everything is born out of chaos. You know what I mean? Without chaos, there wouldn't be, well, us. There wouldn't be nature. There wouldn't be life. There wouldn't be consciousness, and everything invisible would be, but not manifested earthly. So chaos is not necessarily our enemy. Chaos is our enemy only when we want to control it, only when we fear it, only when we, the worst expression of Pisces is delusional or fanatic. When no, we want to believe an idea, a dream. It doesn't matter if the spirit or whoever, whatever contradict, it doesn't matter. And since I displayed the asteroids, look at what else is in Pisces. Vesta, also kind of conjunct the North Node. Vesta, goddess of the sacred flame, of family, of like, if Venus is desire, then Vesta is that love between mom and children, between husband and wife, with as a family, that type of love, community love, anything that is like non-desire, non-sensual, sexual love. That's Vesta, Pallas Athena, and Nessus. Nessus is also very important because Nessus is the poisoner. Nessus is also a symbol of vitriol. I know I've been over raping this term almost, but it is what it's out there. So, and also Ceres just freshly entered into the sign of Taurus. So that is also very, very important because just a few days ago, it was along with the other planet sign name in the sign of Aries. And Ceres is the nurture, the food. Ceres is basically what feeds our core. And in the sign of Aries, what feeds our inner flame, what feeds our creational energies and sense of direction. In Taurus is all that, but crystallizing, like as the magma turns into something solid crystal, rock. So the planets are speaking, and this is the Aries equinox, so it determines minimally the karma and the karmic patterns of the next 3 months. But since Aries is the beginning of the astrological new year, that many times extends to all of the year and beyond. Why? Because Sun's meeting the big planets, Neptune and Saturn. So that's very, very important. The Sun meeting Neptune and Saturn, because this is the dream, but not the Piscean delusional dream or fantasy or mysticism. This is where what works, who am I, what works for me, knowing my limitations and knowing the lack of my limitations, what I can do, where my force extends to, along with Venus. My value, my lust, my physical beauty, my sexual powers, my magnetism, my bank account. But along with the moon, my emotions, my deepest emotions. And Eris and Chiron, what have the wounds that I received all this incarnation done to me? What did I do with them? Because don't get me wrong, Eris conjunct Chiron, the wounds are very much open. This isn't a new energy. We had Eris conjunct Chiron for the past roughly 3-4 years, not exact on and off, etc., but it was there. So it's very, very important what the wounds have done for us. So this Aries equinox, and basically this year, starting with this year, is who am I within my sovereignty? And sovereignty means ditch the spirit. Yes, sometimes in some cycles, the spirit is the opposite, where we have to tell it, as above, so below, but as below, so above. We have to tell it what we need, who we are, what we don't want to be inspired to be, and what we need to be inspired to be. At the same time, the North Node in Pisces, especially right now conjunct with Mercury and Mars, because Mercury is sandwiched between Mars and the North Node. And Palisatina is also in tactics, pure wisdom. Why? Sorry, I lost the plot here. So yes, of course, we have an influence over the spirit. This is where it's not the dream driving us. We are driving the dream, and it must be so. And Nessus, rather not so positive astrological energy is actually our best friend right now. The legend of Nessus is that that he deceived the wife of Hercules to poison him, basically. I'm not gonna go into details. However, oh, evil, poor wife of Hercules. Yeah, but why is Hercules a cheater then? So, you know what I mean? Pisces. Two sides. And neither is better than the other. You know what I mean? Poor Hercules, right? Poor wife of Hercules. Well, why couldn't she be a strong woman and just deal with it? Don't have to separate. Did you ever hear about forgiveness? So Nessus sometimes is actually the good guy, because he had enough of hypocrisy. Let's pretend we're a happily married couple and loyal to each other. He knew what he was doing with his last dying breath. So yeah. But we also must include Uranus, because Uranus is finishing his job for the next 80 something. I hope I'm getting it right. In the sign of Taurus. Sorry, yeah, in the sign of Taurus. And is preparing to re enter the sign of Gemini, and meet Sedna. Sedna, how should I say, is the new Pluto. Why? Sedna is truly the boundary of our solar system. Sedna is the only major planetoid that spends most of her time outside of the heliosphere. Pluto or anything in existence doesn't even come close to that, because everything is between the bounds of the heliosphere, in the bounds of the sun. So in the bubble, Sedna is the only one outside. So if an astrological power can be in direct contact or connection with what we would call God, that's Sedna, nothing else. Pluto is the gatekeeper. Pluto is the ambassador of all the trans-Neptunian objects. It is like the headmaster. You would argue that didn't it take it Saturn used to be like that for the ancient Greeks and other civilizations and Hellenistic and other astrology. Yes, it was perceived at the boundary. In modern age, it's Pluto, not in a Saturnian way, in an information way. Pluto was discovered in the 1930s, something around that. Atomic energy, atomic bomb, psychology, all of psyops, both good and bad. Psychology, healing, mysticism, occult, mind over matter. All the big names of modern, mysticism and psychology. I'm not even gonna mention Jung because he is like an Einstein of quantum physics. Of course, everyone knows that. But everyone started to become relevant. So that was Pluto's discovery. Saturn and Pluto was discovered. When Pluto was discovered, it was in the sign of Gemini, moving into Cancer. Cancer, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, it wiped out the whole community because Cancer is community, borders. Sedna, sign of Taurus, was discovered in the sign of Taurus, and just freshly in 2024 moved into the sign of Gemini. Pluto, just like Pluto, in a different way, Sedna is the deep. Sedna is the higher octave of Ceres. So if Ceres is nurture, Sedna is the unrefined, the primal brute God within us. God that has no religion, nothing like that. The primal God. How should I say? What is God? Well, let's go before the Big Bang. There is no nothingness. There is only a state of quantum boil where everything is just a possibility, everything is just a dream, just like water when it boils. Those little bubbles are the infinite possibilities, God's dream, let's say. What determines what becomes real and what not? Well, if everything is chaos, chaos falls in love with a bubble and it allows it to have an order. Love, right? Love. Love is, well, at the end of the day, love is the everything. God is truly, literally, even in quantum physics, because I'm not dreaming this up. Read quantum physics papers, it's all there. If the Large Hadron Collider at CERN, CERN, did something good, well, it was this, because the other thing is real pure bad. Well, that's Sedna. Sedna is the gateway to that. Sedna, even her legend, the deeps, she went to the maximum depth of water, ocean, the unconscious. And instead of dissolving into the abyss, well, she actually found goddesshood, right? And according to her legend, there are 10 million versions of this legend. I'm just gonna tell you. She was exiled, sentenced to death. In other parts of the legend, she fled, doesn't matter, but she clung on to the boat with her fingers, which were either, according to some versions, frozen off, so, snapped off, other cut off by her father or the people of her father. And her fingers turns into sea mammals, especially whales and sperm whales. Now, sperm whales are one of the most, I don't even know how to, extraordinary beings in existence, because their vibration, their voice, I don't really know how to explain this. They can emit such a huge wave that they can stun anything in existence with vibration. If a human being would be hit by their sonic boom, our bones would fracture, all of our bones would fracture in a second. But then again, normal other whales, not sperm whales, they might not have this weapon, but their song, their sonar, they're the symbol of intuition. That's God. Only God can. They channel God, if you like. Sedna, in the depth, in darkness. But she's not in darkness, because Sedna is the how you call it, patron saint of bioluminosity, producing your own light, inner light. Inner light doesn't burn, doesn't blind. It is gentle. It is beautiful. It is sacred and hidden within us. That's why it's inner, right? Sedna in Gemini. So why is this important? When Uranus touches any planet, it radicalizes it. So you can imagine Gemini, freedom of speech. What's true, what's not true. And also Gemini, the daytime or masculine sign of Mercury, the mind, you know what I mean? And Gemini, the twins. Gemini is the lovers. Gemini is the other. All of us are dual within ourselves. All of us are twins, because everyone has Gemini in their charts. So, if you will, the simplest example, everyone has a male and female hemisphere of their, how you call it, their brains. There you go, the twins. But this can take on a myriad of expressions. Now, Sedna and also Uranus do love to clean. That's why right now we see everything is a pure lie and deception and con. Gemini is the sign of lies, right? While Virgo, the nighttime sign of Mercury, is the sign of falsification, where you don't just lie, you counterfeit money or fakes or designer fakes and stuff like that. Or when, placebo, you give the medicine, it works, but it's just, I don't know, something totally non-medicine, totally neutral, harmless. But it works because, that's how Mercury works sometimes. So anyway, going back to Gemini, sign of lies. I don't want to get into detail because we just look at the world stage. Everything is either a lie or a secret. But it's not the not the Scorpio secret. No, 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 no. A secret in the sense I don't want to say, I don't want to admit it, I don't want to speak about it, so I lie that it's a secret. That kind of secret, you know. However, all of that is also within us. Where are we lying to ourselves? Where are we being dual in a destructive way, in a way that we dishonor deeply ourselves, our mind, and the lovers that we are? Sedna Uranus will ask us to address this issue. Now, they themselves are radical. You know what I mean? It's not gentle, it's not nice, it's ugly, or it's shocking, it's like a lightning bolt, or like, you know, guillotine. Like a lightning bolt. But this is where Mercury, Vesta, Pallas Athena, Mars, even Nessus in the sign of Pisces, love. Let's apply love to it. Neptune in the sign of Aries. We can stop duality. No, no, actually, no. We don't need to stop duality. We need to harmonize it. Dual is absolutely fine as long as it's loving, as long as it serves an honest purpose, as long as it is. Let me give you an example. A psychologist or any kind of therapist, the same person can console the victim and the aggressor, especially in prison systems. The mediator, the victim and the aggressor sit at the same table with the mediator that makes the duality, the two polarities, actually, or gives a good try, harmony, forgiveness, understanding, communication, not directly with each other, because that's the source of all conflict, in a guided way. That is exactly what this Aries equinox and what this year asks us to do. All of us, the new beginnings, the I want to be this, do this, live this, go forward with this. It's on. But these energies ask us to make it gentle, make it loving, make it harmonious, make it beautiful, make it sacred. But what sacred means to us, not to anyone else, to us. A self-centered energy, which is actually not narcissistic, because that's one of the possibilities, but rather sacred, sacred self, sovereignty, independence. I'm the king of my castle. I'm the star of my show. I'm the, you know, star seed, if you will. This is how we do it. Because dreaming it is fantasy. It's not real. Never gonna be real. Watching, I know this is a bit, watching this, it's a dream. It's not real. Okay, the information and it makes you feel this and that. Eureka, yes, that's what I feel. Yes, Zen. You just translated what I have always been feeling and replaced Zen with any other who you're watching. Okay, that's just Neptune and Pisces. That's a dream. Let's make it real. Making it real means let's stop spiritually bypassing stuff. Let's look at the ugly eye to eye. Let's look at the beautiful, the value, the worth eye to eye. There is foolish courage and there is divine courage. And as I said, divine comes from within. I know I'm going to be hated for this, but this year and Saturn's this transit in Aries is where let's take off the chains from belief in the sense that no one may tell us what to believe. No scripture, no ritual, no rigidity that doesn't make absolutely any sense. You know what I mean? This year invites us to strip the nonsense, to strip the outdated, to strip the poison, the ancient poison, and make it something that is really okay. I don't want to say for everyone, Pisces spirit of communion, so it should, but at least it should be okay in philosophy. At least it should be okay morally speaking. Because when it's okay in philosophy and morally speaking, then green lights to fantasy, to creativity, to dreams, to all of the positive. Absolutely. Because ultimately that's what Uranus wants in, along with Sedna in Gemini. Because Gemini is a very creative sign. You know, Gemini is the third sign of the zodiac. So if Aries is the embryo, Taurus is when you're already out, but Gemini is when you can actually do something. Speak, hands, paint, draw, creativity. That creativity begins with Gemini. So you can imagine Uranus is also artificial intelligence. And let's make sure that it is a really good-humored, good-tempered, a good-willed, just lovely child, because it is our child. We can't ignore this fact anymore. And in a few months, Uranus will trine Pluto once again. These trines will keep on coming back, but Pluto-Uranus trine should be the most prosperous, most freedom-oriented, most, I don't even know, the golden age, if you will, intellectually, mentally, technologically, because Pluto is in the sign of Aquarius, the good spirit, inspiration, the all the good that everyone has been dreaming of. The very foundations of like democracy or anything positive, charity, humanitarianism, etc., etc., etc. So it's a trine. It don't guarantee that we're gonna get that because it gives way to that. It catalyzes. A trine is a flow. It is where the universe, instead of challenging, testing, blocking something, it cheerleads, but it's not gonna do it in our place. That's 1,000,000%. If we only have, you know, flowing through technology, through social media, through our minds, the zombification through phones, the trine will have no positive effect. It will have only I know this most astrologers will laugh at me. How can a trine be negative? Because it permits. That's how. A trine in ancient times could only be super positive because people were like that, you know? People lived in accordance with nature much, 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 much more deeply. So, of course, nature knows when it's good. Nature has good cycles and destructive. In this modern age, with all the satellites in the sky, do you really think that, how should I say, certain planets have their maximum best positive expression because satellites block it? Satellites are exotic metal, very much as the Earth's core, right? Okay, not nickel iron, but there is definitely iron, titanium, all the exotic stuff that satellites are made out of. That's an umbrella. right? I hope I'm making sense here. So this Aries equinox is really about us, really about who we are in the core of our being in the eternal now, becoming. So that means we need to clean up the, again, Sedna Uranus, our own lies, our own contradictions, our own dichotomy, that which is harmful, and beautify when the two polarities or the two need to be good bedfellows. And I do believe our lives kind of depend on it. But Gemini is the sign of media, spreading of information, newspaper, anything, even telepathy, if you will, especially with Sedna and Uranus. It will trine Pluto, right? That's real telepathy or empathy, but it's real. It's real. It couldn't be more real than it is in this day and age. So we need to clean our heads from all the BS, both personal BS and also any BS, ancient BS, family BS, anything that is really hindering us from being this Aries self. And last but not least, there is a lot of hope, a lot of magic even in the sky, because under this Aries equinox, Jupiter trines Mars, a water trine. Jupiter rules the sign of Pisces. Jupiter is also very happy, in exaltation in the sign of Cancer. Mars in Pisces, if anything, magical action, philosophical action, manifesting, will, emotion, the will of emotion over matter, etc., etc., etc. Jupiter trine Mars, healing, releasing the past, solidarity, love, unconditional love, any type of love, saving the day, helping others, humanitarianism, all of us are one, etc., etc. And we do need this. So this promises us miracles if we resolve the duality and if we allow the vitriol, Nessus, to do its job in a positive way, if you know what I mean. So I do believe I'll leave it at this. Thank you again for listening, and I really, really hope that this was useful, and I really hope that the universe is pleased with my end of the bargain. So, wishing everyone a blessed either spring or autumn, and may Persephone, both the queen of spring and also the underworld, bring you, how should I say, the very, very most distilled inner wisdom to do the right thing that is for you personally, uninfluenced by anyone, by society, by any spirit, just you. Just you and the essence that you are. The quantum bubble that you are. Because all of us were just a dream, are just a dream. This energy brings us back to remembering the quantum bubble that we are. So thank you, bye.